if you're really present, and in other words, little or no thought, just awareness, you're also aware that the entire space around you and everything in it is filled with presence. There is an underlying presence behind the world of phenomena. Phenomena means everything that we perceive with our senses. Underlying it all, there is a vast intelligence that is part of you. You are it. You are part of it. There is a vast intelligence that underlies all phenomena. And only modern humans have lost the ability to sense that. In ancient cultures in all parts of the world, from North America, South America, Africa, Australia, Asia, and in ancient Europe, etc., they all had the sense that the world was not a dead place, as modern humans believe, because they believe everything is ultimately not alive, has no soul. They all perceived an underlying animating presence in the world. And that is the modern humans have lost it because of excessive development of the conceptualizing mind, which has achieved great things, technology and science, great things, but there was a very heavy price to pay for those achievements. I'm not saying they should not have been achieved. It's what they were, technology and science. But the price we have to pay for achieving that through excessive development of, maybe you could call it left brain if you want to use those terms, excessive development of that, there's been a huge loss of perceiving nature, for example, as a sacred presence behind all phenomena of nature, as all ancient cultures had a relationship to nature that was very different from modern humans' relationship with nature, because they could sense there was a deeper presence at work, both in the totality of nature, but also in every individual life form. There was a presence. They all talked about that, all the ancients, an underlying intelligence, that is, do we call that God? We can call it anything, but we have, for example, in ancient Egypt, there's one of the most important goddesses, or perhaps the most important goddess, is called Maat, M-A-A-T. That is a personification of the animating presence, the organizing principle behind all life forms, the vast intelligence. Maat is depicted usually it's a human form, female form, with huge outstretched wings, like that. That's a personification of that. I have a replica of a papyrus of that in my bedroom. I look at it every morning and every evening. This is the picture of Maat, which is that. And then all The Tao in Chinese is that there is the ultimate reality behind the world of phenomena, is this mysterious Tao that you cannot explain, that you cannot really understand conceptually, but you can internally align yourself with it so that you can flow with it and realize your oneness with this mysterious Tao that underlies the world of phenomena. In the New Testament, in the beginning of the Gospel of John, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." It's a mistranslation of the word logos, which is they translated as word. In the beginning was the logos. Logos is a Greek term from ancient Greek philosophy, which the evangelist must have read quite a bit of ancient Greek philosophy. He brought in this term. So in the beginning was the logos. The logos is not just the word, is not quite right. It is the intelligence that emanates from God and ultimately is one with God. And then the next step is that Jesus Christ is then regarded as a personification of that intelligence. So that's if you can sense it within yourself, you also increasingly begin to sense it in all life forms, that presence that inhabits all life forms. And when you sense that in other human beings, that completely changes the way in which you relate to another human being, because you no longer relate to another person, although you can recognize the person, but you realize the person is just a veil, and beyond the veil you can sense the being behind the person. And the being behind the person and the being of you are one. And that recognition is in love, in its the highest manifestation of that is true love, which is love. It is a benevolence that arises towards other humans and all life forms, a goodwill, a benevolence that flows, that connects you, that realizes that ultimately the other is not other. It's only on the level of the person, the surface self, the other is other. And you recognize that. You recognize the ways in which this person acts is according to their conditioning. No person can act beyond their unconscious conditioning and beyond their level of consciousness. If they haven't awakened, they are at the mercy of their unconscious conditioning. And there's no point in demanding that an unconscious human should know better. They are unconscious. They're not even there. It's a dreamlike state. And with that recognition also comes the ability to forgive. To forgive is to recognize, not to transform the behavior of others that are motivated by unconsciousness, which is to do with the evolutionary stage that humanity finds itself in, is still to a large extent unconscious, but awakening. So you don't equate the unconsciousness of a person with their identity, because if you do that, you create a prison for them, and you create a prison ultimately for yourself. This judgment becomes a part of your prison. Forgiveness happens when you realize that there's nothing to forgive, because this person is unconscious or was unconscious. Can you forgive yourself if you look back what you did years ago? Some of people carry an enormous amount of guilt because they realize, I did that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That's what I did. Now, of course, they are more conscious. They can recognize the unconsciousness that forced them to act, that acted through them in that way. And again, The mistake is to make an identity out of that, not to recognize it as unconsciousness at work. It's nothing to do with your essential identity. It was part of the inherited conditioning of your mind. Now, does that mean that a person who commits dreadful acts, does that mean that they are not responsible? Because that's what I'm saying seems to imply that a person who does very evil things is not responsible for what they do because they're in the grip of their unconsciousness. Well, one could say, yes, they are ultimately not responsible, but because it is the destiny of humans to awaken out of their unconsciousness, a person who acts unconsciously needs to experience the suffering that is created by their consciousness. They will experience suffering created by their own unconsciousness, one way or another. And it could be through the justice system. It could be that they are put in prison and then they suffer, or it could be some other form of suffering, or it could not come until they die and they go into hellish realms in the astral dimension for a while. So humans, suffer the consequences of their consciousness, and the suffering eventually can awaken them.